Testing.
Don't need to do all that one.
Yeah, you comfortable with this kind of talking here?
Perfect.
Alrighty, welcome to the Fish Nerds. It's a celebration of fish, fishing, and eating fish. That is always interesting, usually funny, and mostly true. I'm the Snorkel Meister of the North American Native Fishes Association, and here are the nerds.
And I'm Clay Groves. Anything is fair game, and it's a good bet that learning about conservation will make me into a liberal.
I love that. I'm Andrew Lewin from Speak Up for Blue podcast, and I'm a marine ecologist that is trying to make people live for a better ocean, and I'm having a darn time doing it. I'm having fun doing it, man. I can't tell you enough. This is a great time.
Yeah, it's good. And I came across you. I don't even know how I found you or you found me, but it was somewhere our paths crossed online.
Yeah.
And I found your show, and I totally like what you're doing and what you're all about. I mean, this whole idea of conservation. And a lot of people say, but you kill fish. How can you be a conservationist? And I say, good point. I don't know how that works, but I am.
I'll tell you, though, Clay, you know what? Some of the best conservationists that I've met have been recreational fishermen. Mm-hmm. Or fish, I should say. They have, because you're out there.
Right, and I'm
right?
putting
You're
the,
out there
I'm putting
and you
the
love being
wreck
in the windward.
in fishing. I'm wrecking it.
Yeah. Don't say that.
Yeah, oh no. Yeah. I put the wreck in the recreational fishing.
But you know what's funny is there's a guy, Wallace J. Nichols. He's a PhD. He's been around. He does sea turtle biology, and he's written a book called Blue Mind, and it's all about being around the ocean, being around the water, how it makes you feel good. And I'll tell you, you got surfers, fishing community, fishing people, the scuba divers. They're all out in the ocean, and they're just having a great time. And they tend to be some of the best conservationists and most aware conservationists you've ever seen, because you guys see everything, right? You guys are out there all the time.
We're out there. We're in the mix. And here's the thing about fishermen. Fishermen are positive, hopeful people. And here's my theory on this.
All right.
And I'm a big ice fisherman. That's my
okay.
I'm a fishing guide. Ice fishing guide is my favorite sport. If it was icy year round and I could just go on the ice every day and fish, I'd be so happy. I love the cold. I love the ice.
Nice.
But think about this. You're on a 100-acre lake.
Right.
You drill a 6-inch hole, and you drop a string down that hole. The amount of hope in that one spot, that's not a negative action. That's an action of hope and promise. And
absolutely.
You know what I mean? I always say we bait our hooks with hope.
You know what? I don't know if I would have the patience for that.
Oh.
I've never been ice fishing. I do want to go at some point, but I've never had the patience. And I'll tell you, one of the interesting things, I did some work up in the Arctic a bunch of years ago, mm-hmm. and I was working with a Nunavut guy, and he was great. And I was talking to him, I'm like, hey, how's the fishing up here? And he's like, oh man, he goes, the fishing is the best. He goes, I hike out to close to the ocean, especially in the wintertime. I'll drill ice and I'll catch Arctic char, massive Arctic char. I'm like, well, how many do you get? He's like, I usually get 20, 25
in a day.
And I'm like,
that's a lot of fish. Yeah.
Well,
wow.
Of course. And he goes, and then he brings it back and he feeds his village.
That's
right.
amazing.
So he brings it back, he feeds his family, and then he gives it to the elders to feed the village. And I'm just like, at first I didn't believe him. I was like, okay, everybody exaggerates a little bit. So I'm like, but even 10 Arctic char. I'm like, those are massive fish. These aren't like little juveniles. These are like the big ones. And he's like, that's unbelievable. Like, I'll take that fishing any day.
Sure.
Where I know I'm going to catch it, I'm going to be happy.
Right.
Because I don't know if I have patience for that.
I mean, I don't have patience for not catching fish.
Right.
I do not. I went out the other day fishing on a big glacial lake here in New Hampshire.
Right.
Not the big one, not Winnipesaukee, but Ossipee, and which is formed by a bunch of ring dikes. It's got a volcanic ring around it, which is amazing.
Oh,
so it's really just a deep circle. And I don't know what it was. I have one of those Fitbit watches on.
Yep.
And I walked 10 miles of that lake drilling holes and caught 2 fish.
Oh.
And I'm using high-tech equipment to find the fish. I have sonars. I know where they live.
Right.
Before, I drill the hole and I look in the hole with the electronics. I'm like, there's a fish there. And no matter what, I couldn't pay for a bite. It was terrible.
Oh, they just beat you that day.
They beat me. They don't usually win. But that day,
Right.
I don't know if it was the high pressure system or the full moon or the north
Yeah.
wind or whatever excuse. Someone had bananas on them. Something went wrong, and I didn't catch any fish. And in fact, I was so mad, and I need to defeat that lake now. But it's frustrating. I like catching fish, but I'm like you. I'm impatient.
Yeah.
But I can't tell people why I like catching fish, though. It doesn't make any sense. Because I catch these fish, I take a photo, I put them back in the water. Most of the time.
So you catch
90% of the time.
And I would say, would you say that's most recreational fishermen, unless they're looking for dinner or something like that?
I would say most let them go.
Yeah.
There's a good handful of old school fishermen who need to get their limit every day. Their goal, catch and kill as many as are allowed by law to kill. I get it in a way.
Yeah.
I don't get it in a lot of other ways. I have a problem with
Right.
people who just if you're feeding your family, cool. But if your goal is just limiting out, it's within the law.
Yeah,
but it makes me uneasy.
Ethically, is it really what you need to do?
Well, I mean, especially if you're limiting out, let's say on a big lake trout, which is a big togue, and they are like they're char basically.
Mm-hmm.
They're huge, and the average, 18 inches to keep them. Average size about 22 inches, and to get that big, about 9-year-old get a 9-year-old fish, and that's an old fish.
Yep.
And they're slow growing, and I don't feel good about killing that fish.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Especially the limit every time you go out too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now a 9-inch yellow perch, well, that's
right.
Who cares? There's, you know what I mean? Like it's a few years old, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. So and plus they don't taste good. Yellow perch are delicious, and trout aren't as good. So true.
Yeah. Well, and then that's the thing, though. I think you got to look at it in that sort of way, where you look at it in a responsible fashion, and use some common sense.
Yep.
And like, look, if you're gonna fish to the max, these older fish, slow growing fish, then eventually, especially if more people do it, eventually there's going to be a loss, because there's nothing getting put back, and you're going to go after the larger fish, the largest fish, and then of course, you're going to take the trophies out. So then the next generation that's going to spawn are going to be the smaller ones, and it's all genetics from there, right? So you're not going to get as big a fish, and they're just, especially if you take out the big females, and it's just, it gets lower and lower and lower until they're basically gone, or they're not worth the catch. And then people complain, and then they go complain to the government and say, "What'd you do with my fish?"
Exactly. Well, New Hampshire's really great too. We have a trophy fish program with a catch and release category.
Right.
So you catch a big trophy fish, measure it, take a photo and release it, you can still get your trophy patch without killing it. In a lot of states, to get the trophy patch, you have to kill the fish and bring it to a biologist, confirm the species. It's a big to-do. So that's nice. But for state records, you've got to kill them.
And that's the thing, right? And you see that with big sharks like makos and stuff like that, who want the record, and you're just like, God damn.
Well, have you ever? You don't fish. But have you? I once was involved in hunting and killing a mako, and before I went, I called the Maine Department of Fisheries and whatever, and I checked in with them and said, "Look, we're going to go out and make shark fishing. If we get a big mako, is it okay fish to keep? Is it within the law? And is it sustainable?"
Right.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, go for it. Have a great time." And we're like, "Cool." We went for it and had a great time. And we caught this huge fish, and it was one of our best episodes. We caught it live. We were recording an episode on the boat. We had a podcast recording going. Caught the big thing, beautiful fish. We had one of our listeners got to come with us and catch it, and we would let him decide if it lived or died. We get back in the dock as a biologist. They're measuring it, taking samples. We fed about 25 people, these giant steaks of mako shark.
Of course.
I go on public radio the week after, and the conservationists come out of the walls at me. And I'm like, oh, and they taught me all kinds of stuff I didn't know about mako shark. And so I thought I was doing an okay thing. And now, knowing what I know, I won't kill another mako shark. If I'm feeling the urge to eat shark, it's going to be a dogfish. Something that there's thousands and thousands of them, that don't reproduce so slowly. So, we can learn.
And that's the thing, right? Like a lot of the times, some of these fish were just learning. Yeah. And to be honest, it's the reason why I started Speak Up for Blue. Now, I don't say that I know everything.
No, but you know
right?
some stuff.
But I know some stuff. I know the basics, and well, the reason why I started Speak Up for Blue was because even my family and friends didn't know the basics, and I was like, wait a minute.
Well, you know, people are fish stupid overall. I mean, most
they
people
are,
don't
but
know
they're ocean stupid. They don't realize, and I was too before I got educated on it. But I just spent my parents spent a lot of money for me to get educated into this. But on the regular basis, if you think, especially now, there's so much to learn. But we all get distracted by what Kim Kardashian is wearing today.
Well,
right. So
I mean,
so we got better things
to be honest,
worry about. Right?
It's worth worrying about what she's wearing, and it's fun to notice it.
Yeah. I can see that to a point, but I guess what was happening is I had people of all different backgrounds. I've got a lot of different friends from everywhere, and they didn't know. They didn't know what was going on in the ocean, and you'd see them drinking a plastic water bottle, and you're just like, do I tell them? Do I not tell them?
Oh.
And they'd ask, they'd be like, oh, I've got this do you want some water? I'm like, no, I don't drink out of plastic water bottles. So like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I live in Toronto.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I got the best water in the world.
No, you don't.
Out of the tap.
We have the best.
All right, you have the best. So now we have a competition.
We do.
But I'm like, that water is like, they say it's from Guelph, which is like a little town just north of here. And I'm like, so it's Guelph. It's Guelph water.
Water.
We got Lake Ontario water.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, it's just there's nothing special about it. All it is, it's just convenient because it's in this little plastic bottle that's really bad for the environment.
I can't tell you how shocked I am that bottled water is a thing and that it costs more than soda. It blows my mind. Now, where I live in North Conway, New Hampshire, our groundwater is Poland Spring. In fact, one town over is where the Poland Spring pumps their water out of the groundwater. There's no spring called Poland Spring; it's just water. But which is it's the biggest water company in the country right now.
Right.
And they just pump it out and bottle it for $1.50 a bottle. And I'm with you. I don't drink out of plastic bottles either, unless I have one for reusing, like a nice one.
Yeah.
But I refuse. And even if I'm at an event and there's bottled water everywhere, I won't even touch it.
I won't touch it.
People put it in front of me. I'm like, nope, sorry.
No, I'll tell you, I'm the same way with plastic bags at a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I'll have my reusable bags, but sometimes I forget.
Paper.
Right. And we don't have paper, so they don't. There's no paper or plastic here anymore when they offer it. It's just they just offer plastic, and you have to pay for it. But I just buy like these cloth reusable bags. We have a bunch, we just keep it in our trunk, right? But sometimes I forget to bring them in the store.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm like, oh, I forgot my bags, and so the cashier is like, oh, do you want me to just put plastic? And I'm like, no. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, I'll just put it in my trunk like that. And they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm not taking plastic. And then I'll tell them why.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm like, it's not a damper on you, but I'm trying to, I'm just trying to reduce single-use plastic. Like, oh, that's such a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I say it out loud, I used to think, oh, I'm being I'm doing such a bump. Like, why am I doing this? I'm going to make people feel bad. But then people behind me start saying, oh, that's a good idea. And I've actually seen people actually buy on the spot reusable bags that's just in the just the front with all the magazines and stuff. There's usually a couple, and they just come up, and then I've seen people actually buy it after. So I was like, well, maybe I should say it a little more often, because the conversation is like, oh, how do you know so much about the ocean? And I'm like, oh, I'm a marine biologist. And then so once you say you're a marine biologist, and after you get over the whole George Costanza, you're a marine biologist kind of thing, once you get over that joke, people take you seriously.
Well, you get credibility with that.
You do, so, yeah, for sure. And so they start listening, and I've had conversations based on that. So I started speaking up about that, and that's kind of like where I got the idea for Speak Up for Blue, is just people need to know.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest impediment in conservation is getting people to listen.
Well, and probably because a lot of the conservationists out there are speaking at people and not to people.
Yeah.
They're yelling over them. They're making them feel bad, and people don't need to be made to feel bad. They need to learn stuff, and the feeling bad will come on all by itself.
Well, because it does. It gets depressing. Like, I started a YouTube channel a few years ago when I started Speak Up for Blue, and it was just me talking about news and some of the things. And I had a friend who came up to me who's the gym owner that I was at the gym, and she was like, yeah, I started watching them, but then I got too depressed. I stopped watching. And so I realized, I'm like, I can't do that then. I can't just talk about the issues. I have to talk about the positive things. I have to talk about the cool things. And that's where the podcast idea came up, whereas I can speak it and I can really show the passion behind that I have it. So a lot of the times I'll cover a story of like a new species that was discovered and say how cool this is. And then every once in a while I'll slip in an issue because we still have to talk about the issues.
Sure.
But then you got to, filter it in with like some really cool new things, and that's what's good. And so you learn that as a science communicator. There's a big sort of movement in the marine science and conservation field is let's communicate better. Let's talk to people better and really engage with them. And there's a couple of sites, deepseanews.com. I'm not sure if you know them.
No, I don't.
Deepseanews.com is a great site. It's all about obviously deep sea stuff, but they're great. They're not only are they scientists, they're scientists from all over the country, sometimes from Canada, and the chief editor, Dr. Craig McLean, he works down in Louisiana now, but he's just a scientist who has fun, and they write blogs and like they're short, but they talk about like some pretty cool things, but they'll myth bust a lot of times. They've got really good traction a few years ago when they went after the Fukushima people, the alarmists that were talking about how there was a map that was shared about Fukushima, how the radiation was leaking. Yeah, it ended up being like a sea surface temperature map, and it wasn't. And the ironic thing is a guy the person who ended up sharing it that I knew was a climate change denier.
Well, I was going to say the same people who believe that garbage will not believe the real data on climate. So it's
right. But if you see a map and it has like NOAA under it, and somebody has changed the title, how are you supposed to know? Right, it's that fake news kind of thing where you're just like, wait a minute.
So
that's why I always say,
fake news before it was called fake news.
Fake news, and that wasn't me. This is Deep Sea News that did it, and they had a series showing like why it's so good, and they talked about all the different points, and they had like there was one of the things that was really going bad was there were these starfish that had this that were just wasting away in the Pacific, and people were saying, oh, it's because of the cesium that was in there from Fukushima. But it had nothing to do with the cesium. It was actually called fish wasting disease, and it had to do with a bit of climate change and a bit of bacteria and all this kind of stuff. So they had an expert from the Smithsonian on starfish put a blog out, and Christopher Mott, and he kind of annihilated that myth. And you're just like, this is amazing. Like, and they do it in a fun way. It's really entertaining to listen to. It's awesome. Another website is southernfriedscience.com. Have you ever heard of those guys?
Yes, I've heard. Southernfriedscience.com?
Science. Yeah, Southern Fried Science. So that's Andrew David Thaler. David Schiffman writes there. Chris Parsons writes there. Actually, David Schiffman just completed his PhD on recreational shark fishing. Oh, wow. And sort of how people approach recreational shark fishing and conservation. Really good, interesting PhD. It's available online. If you actually go to a recent post, I'll send you the link afterwards so you can post it for your group and your listeners. But he talked about 37 things he learned through his thesis about sort of the surveys that he did.
You couldn't just round it to 40,
No, you got to go with a blog. You know this. You've got to go an odd number, right? Yeah. Like 482 reasons why I love a fish, right? Yep. That's why you got to do it. It's never an even number.
12, 17 and a half things that will shock you about fish and a half a thing you already knew.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. So, I mean, I think your show's great, and like I said,
thank you.
I'm glad I stumbled across it somehow, and I'm glad we connected.
Yeah.
All the links you just gave me, I just already put in the show notes, so those will show up
Perfect.
at fishnerds.com.
Awesome.
So how long have you been doing the show?
I've been doing it for just over a year and a half.
Over a year and a half, and that's
I started.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. This is the first thing I've stuck with for a while with Speak Up for Blue, just because I love it so much. Yeah. I started off by doing an interview once a week for about 12 weeks. And then I was like, you know what? I had a friend who came who contacted me. He was like, hey, I want to help you out with this. I'm like, great. So we started doing some episodes together, and we did it. We went to 5 days a week for about 4 months. But I work a full-time job, and doing that, I just couldn't with it. So now I do it 3 times a week. So I do like a solo one. It's kind of like a motivation one, where I'll talk about some different things. Talk about, say, like now, and a lot of my listeners are from the U.S., so I'll do a lot of U.S. things just to sort of they understand what we talk about, and then
you got to convert
so now
metric to standard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I still, I'd still have trouble with that. But I'll talk like the big thing is like on the solo ones. The one I just talked about this Monday was new incoming president, new administration, climate change deniers. How's that going to affect science from now on? That kind of thing. Take away the rest of the politics, but let's just focus on how do we move forward. And then sometimes it's just like, hey, how do you make your lunches? To go to work, do you use plastic? Do you not? Like what kind of, here's some suggestions and stuff like that. Or I'll talk about some big news that's happened. Wednesdays is usually an interview with a conservationist or scientist that I think are doing fantastic work. And that includes everybody. It's not just a scientist. It could be anybody who I just think is amazing, and I'll have them on the show. And then Friday, I do an Ocean Talk Friday where I team up with somebody. I'd love to have you on, by the way.
I'd be happy to, yeah.
That'd be fun. And we pick like four articles four news stories that happened that week, and we just talk about them. It could be anything from a discovery of a new species to some politics, or in the last few months, Obama will designate a new marine protected area, and you're like, let's talk about it and why it's so important and that kind of stuff. So give opinions, sometimes good, sometimes bad. So that's how I kind of format the show, and it's been working fairly well lately. It's starting to catch on now. As you know, it takes a while for it to catch on, and then people are starting to discover the show and go on back episodes and listen to more episodes.
Yeah, that's how it comes down. It really kind of grows very, very slowly, but you build a reputation, and the more you do it, the more people will go to you as the person who understands this world, and it's great. And I think there's not enough podcasters doing the kind of work you're doing. Right. And so I'm super happy to see you out there. I think we need more podcasts talking about fishes in the oceans and stuff. So,
and that's why I started. That's why I started, right? And I just saw there's nobody talking about it, and I said, I started listening to podcasts, and I just couldn't find the ones that, like, I got sick of the ones that I was listening to. They're all out of business ones,
right?
And I was like, hey, it's time to talk about.
You can put the oceans on fire. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to catch the ocean on fire.
That could be my new intro.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's the classic business podcast everyone goes to.
Exactly. You got to make it exciting. It's business. You got to speak loudly and scream sometimes and say fire, and you're good.
Someday that guy's going to listen to my show and go, "Why do you make fun of me? I never even know who you are."
No, I'm sure he's good with it. He just wants to see everybody succeed.
He's making $1 billion. That's fine.
He is.
So this is really great. So before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about funding these podcasts.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really important. So just as for listeners and people who've been the Fish Nerds a long time, our podcast is funded by our listeners through Patreon. We do not have any advertising revenue. That is yet. I'm not against it. We just haven't found the right advertisers yet. So right now, every dollar our show makes, we make from our listeners, and we just got some new donors on Patreon. So listener named, and both of them have great names. Kevin Kupzik and Cesar Yepes both joined us today as new Patreon donors. If you want to give money to the show, go to Patreon.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Go to patreon.com/fishnerdz. And we're asking all of our listeners to give us $1 per episode, $4 a month to keep our show going. And Andrew, my show is on life support right now. That's what I'm telling my listeners. Like if I'm not making enough money to cover all my costs by March, the show is going to be an occasional podcast. It's not going to be a weekly show anymore, because I've been going at it for a long time, and we're losing money. We're leaking out here. So yeah.
You know what? I understand that, man. I do the same thing, and it's a lot of work. It's not, like we were discussing before, sort of the format of the show. Yeah. It takes a long time. Like you gotta gather, some of the people that you want. You got to interview. There's rescheduling. There's doing it after hours.
Right. Well, how many times have you and I talked before actually getting the show going?
Oh man, honestly, we met in June, and we've been talking about hooking up for a show at some point.
Right.
It was Rhett Talbot actually who got us together. By the way,
now Rhett.
I just remembered that.
Rhett, that's exactly right. Now Rhett, I know from Angler's Pint. I went to his house.
Right.
Interviewed him. He connected me with you and Richard Ross. You know Rich Ross?
Yes,
and
I do.
I haven't had Rich Ross on the show yet either, but he's willing to come on. Rich Ross is like
Nice.
the cephalopod guy, like the
He
guy.
is.
Also a
Yes.
juggler like me. So,
Nice.
Yeah. I cut my teeth on juggling, and anyway, so that's how we met. That's right. And now Rhett's a big conservation photographer and writer as well, and really good person. So now I'm looking here. You, Andrew Lewin, have a Patreon page as well. You're making about $36 a month.
I'm making $36 a month. Yeah, I have a Patreon page to do the same thing you do, man. Like it's I love podcasting. I love talking about the ocean, and the idea of what I want to do is it's not just a podcast that I want to continue with. Is I want to create a platform to raise awareness for marine science and conservation.
So
as I said before,
than me. I want to pay for my equipment.
yeah, I do too. Like that's when I first started. I was like, hey man, like I want to pay just for my equipment, just so I can do this, and pay for the time that I allot to this because I do, a lot. And it's just I decided, you know what, I want to make this a business, and because it's a community business, I'm trying to build a community. I thought, who better to fund it than the community, or at least partly fund it. Yeah, and people love it, and people want to hear more. I'm like, well, if you want to hear more, this is great because, as you know, to get advertising for podcasts is not easy, and the advertisers that are available to most podcasts don't fit the people who listen to our podcast.
Stamps.
People can donate to my Patreon page, patreon.com/oceanandrew. And
did I do it wrong?
No, that's all right. I think you got it. We'll figure it out
I don't
after.
know. I just donated $3 to someone named Andrew Lewin.
I'll take it.
So just I always put my money where my mouth is. If I support someone, I'm going to put the money in the hat and do it. So I've donated at $3 level, so I'll be a named person.
You will be a named person on the next one. And I'll tell you, I just donated to you while you were talking. $2 per episode. So
wow,
yeah, we got it going. We're
actually sort of giving nothing. We're just trading the same dollars. Although your money is Canadian, so it's a lot less. Right? Listen, here's the model. If you think an hour of entertainment is worth $1, which is what I'm selling, put $1 in the hat. You know? That's it. It's simple as that.
Yeah, I agree.
I have one person donating at the $25 level. I don't expect or want everyone doing that. I think the dollar is sustainable. If you're doing $4 a month, then you're going to do it for a long time and never hurt your bank. If you're doing at the higher number, like $100 a month, is great, but you can't sustain that.
No.
And unless you're getting something out of it, there's no return on that investment for you.
No, exactly. So, the way I put it to my people is I say, hey man, I'm like, you want to support conservation, you want to do something for the ocean, you help me raise awareness because that's the best thing that you can do. Well, that's the first thing that you can do, and you can just help me, and people love that. People enjoy that.
Yeah, it's easy. And then, so the Fish Nerds are part of your platform now. You can rely on us to help you. We are in the same team. I'm sure there's things we'll disagree on eventually, but right now we're cool. So we have a Facebook page, the Fish Nerds, that has about 14,000 people who have hit the like button and said, I want to follow the Fish Nerds. And then Facebook said, I don't want to show 14,000 people Fish Nerds things. So I created a special group called the Fish Nerds Podcast. It's a Facebook group.
Right.
Which are not suppressed the same way business pages are. And I have about 500 people on there. And I mentioned to them last week, I'll read you what I wrote. I said, tonight I'm recording a show with our friend from the North and fellow podcaster Andrew Lewin. We're going to talk about conservation fishing and whatever we want. What do you want to know about ocean conservation? And I put a link to your website. And we got people want to know stuff.
Holy cow.
I thought
it was awesome.
Let's unpack that stuff and make that what we talk about because this show belongs to the audience. And
right.
So Rich Collins,
and I have to say before you go on, I have to say I spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours on that thread. Mm-hmm. Responding to people and talking to people, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
I wasn't
don't
sure what
to
expect.
Guys, a bunch of jerks.
But I'll tell you, like I was, when you first said that, I was like, oh, here we go. And then I was like, oh, maybe we won't get that many comments. And then everybody's asking questions, and you're just like, and they weren't just like basic questions. They were in depth. And I was like, this is amazing. And I just sat in there and I was like, told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to be busy for a couple of hours. I got to answer some questions. And these were awesome.
Yeah. We have our audience spans every kind of person, from really smart people to really dumb, and we like them all. So
yeah.
So I'm going to read, and we sincerely do. We have a lot of good discussions on this group, and now you're part of it, and you can jump in any time. I'm not going to do Facebook theater tonight. Sometimes we'll do Facebook theater where we'll act out the different words.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
But we'll just read them straight tonight.
Sounds good.
Well, no, we'll do Facebook theater, but you play your own part. You play the part of Andrew. Okay. And I'll do the voices of our people. All right.
Gotcha.
So,
love it.
First one up is Rich Collins, and he's actually a friend of mine. I've been fishing with a lot this week, and I do a perfect imitation of him.
I love it.
Okay, and he's a little guy, and he's kind of green. All right. In all seriousness, I want to know why. Seems like anyone can get a license to rip the ocean apart, take what lives there naturally for profit, and benefit from what is realistically a shared resource. He's like Yoda. See what I'm doing?
I love it.
Yeah. I can't sustain this. It's akin to harvesting timber in someone else's forest, but no one owns the ocean, right? So while I feel for commercial fishermen who can no longer work, I should rephrase it, who can work no longer, what right do they have to overfish and kill everything they trawl purely for profit? I don't mean this in a hostile way. I just can't figure out how the oceans become farms for profit. Yes.
I feel wiser. Already.
I
feel like the lightsaber's going to come out of my pocket.
That's actually how he sounds. It's true.
I can't wait to talk to him. He actually friended me after this exchange, so that was awesome.
He's going to unfriend me after this.
You better be careful it's not thin ice next time you guys are out, right?
Yeah.
To answer that question, it was a great question because, there's a couple of parts to this question. There's the part of, why are they fishing till there's no more? And then who has that right? Who owns the ocean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing. So you got to think let's start with that. Every country has an economic zone, an exclusive economic zone, and usually goes about 200 nautical miles out from shore, anywhere. And so the U.S. has one, Canada has one, and actually, it used to be, I've been told, that Canada came up with what that's what they owned, so that's what they were responsible for. So you can't, an American can't come in and fish in Canadian waters because that's our exclusive economic zone. So they have to have special permission and a license. Now, it derived from military use back in the day when they had cannons, and what you owned was how far your cannon can reach.
Really?
Right? So
I'm getting a cannon. This is gonna be awesome. I'm marking my yard.
It's different now. You're in different times now. Be careful.
I wouldn't want to buy a cannon. I totally need one.
Everybody needs a cannon, right? You got to defend. That's under the Second Amendment for you guys, right?
I don't know.
But yeah. So anyway, going back to that, but that's what they own. So like the U.S. and Canada are responsible for fishing, commercial fishing in their own respective exclusive economic zones. Now, that gets divided up within the different levels of government. So the federal government goes out all the way to the 200 nautical mile. I believe in the U.S., I think the state has it to 9 nautical miles, and then the rest is federal. Yeah. And believe it or not,
how does a nautical mile compare to me?
That doesn't help me at all. I'm going to tell you that right now. Does it have nautical miles on here? It does have nautical miles. So 1 nautical mile equals how many miles? So 1 nautical mile is 1.15 miles.
That's good. Okay, I can work with that.
Okay, so that's according to my Convert app, which I don't question ever.
Never question the conversion.
So anyway, so you've got that. So, and a lot of times you've got conflict between the different levels of government because they have different rules in state compared to federal for some reason. So there's a bit of conflict in that respect and who owns what. But now, some countries don't even know who, like, does the province or the state own this area or have rule over this area and so forth. And for instance, so as an example, scalloped hammerhead sharks in Florida, you cannot fish in state waters. However,
you can't take them out of the water.
Right. You can't take
people fish for them, but they don't land them.
Exactly. But some people will say, "Hey, I got them," and then go out to federal waters and say, now I got them, and then bring them back. So, there's that conflict there. It's like, how do you police that? How do you enforce that? Because of the two different rules. So it all depends on the person fishing or the charter boat fishing and so forth.
Well, it seems to me the best way to police that is just to try and change people's cultural thought on it. Is just yes. And I'll tell you, most people fishing are pretty good. Yep.
Right. They're mostly, like, I would say, hopefully 70 to 75% are pretty good. The rest, some people just either they don't know, or they know and they just don't care. But that's a very low percentage.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's also don't care. There's cultural.
Right.
There are some cultures where you eat everything you catch.
Yes, that's true.
Not most Americans, but there are a lot of new Americans who.
Yeah.
I don't know who's Americans. I don't know Canadians that well, but.
No, Canadians too. I mean,
the concept of releasing anything is unheard of.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to grow out of those cultural norms.
Absolutely.
A lot of those like South Pacific, countries and stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of people who have different cultures, different backgrounds, different thoughts on that. You have to deal with that. Plus, you have to deal with the different zones, right? The state and federal zones. But then on the other hand, you've got why are they ripping the oceans apart? And that can be, it depends. There are certain, in my experience, there are certain commercial operations, such as like the big corporations that own licenses and that sell licenses to smaller fishermen, and the fishermen have to sell their fish that they catch at a certain price.
Have you played the Fish Banks game?
No.
There's a game I learned in college called Fish Banks, and basically you're given the class gets broken up into different fishing fleets, and they're given the rules, and they have to negotiate the rules and get through this kind of game. In the end, no matter how you work the rules, it's impossible not to overfish. Right. No matter how you work it, it's just impossible to stay in business and not overfish. You can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's difficult because you've got these corporations that go out and they want to make a profit, right? It's all about business. They make a profit. They don't care about what's happening. But then you got the fishermen who are actually fishing, who have been doing it for generations and generations, and they want to fish forever, right? They want their kids to fish and so on.
I fish like my father before me, and his father before him, and I'm not going to change what I do.
And they care. They care about the ocean because they're out there. And they complain about the current sort of system that they're in, and they have to abide by because they lost all control, and it sucks. And so, there's that problem with that. Then there's a problem of, okay, you got these corporations who are lobbying the government for more fishing, right? But so the government doesn't really want to. They have to deal with the lobbying. But then the government scientists are calculating the numbers, and they're saying, hold on a second. We're dipping in numbers. We're not finding as many fish. And they're like, okay, well, hold on. Like, why is this happening? They figure out why, overfishing and so forth, and quotas are too low or too high, and you got to lower them. But then the lobby's like, we don't want to lower them. We've been fishing like this forever, so let's just keep doing it. The politicians give in. And that's what happened with the cod back in the early 90s in Newfoundland. We had to, there was a big moratorium, and that happened all along the eastern seaboard. It didn't happen just in Canada.
It happened last year here in New England.
Right. Yeah. And so now, and that's now it's more closely managed because we realize how sensitive that those populations are. And I remember and I've been looking for this video on YouTube, but I can't find it. But I remember when I was like 13, 14, early 90s, and I remember watching it on TV here in Canada, like the fishermen going after the member of parliament, the federal member of parliament, because they wouldn't get, they didn't say anything. and it was so dangerous. Like they actually had to barricade himself in his office because they were so pissed because they never said anything. The scientists knew. Of course, the politicians blamed it on the scientists, but the scientists knew. They have the data. I've seen the data, and they knew about it, and they didn't do anything, right? And the scientists told the politicians, but the politicians didn't do anything. And the same thing's happening with the tuna industry. If you've ever seen End of the Line, I recommend anybody seeing End of the Line. It's narrated by Ted Danson. I think it was produced by Oceana, but they talk about the fishing industry and long lining and whatnot. And it's not just like the act of long lining that's terrible, which it's not good because it has a lot of bycatch, but it's all about the politics of like the European Union. So like as an example, it's a great example. So one year the scientists calculated what the quota should be. So it's like, okay, if you want the tuna fish population to survive and be sustainable, the quota will be should be 15, no more than 15,000 tons. Okay, 15,000 tons. They go to the European Union politicians and say 15,000 tons. Right away, the politicians said, we're going to up that to 30,000 tons.
Right, double it, because then they'll be the lobbyists will be happy. Yeah. And then they go into negotiations with the lobbyists. It's 60,000 tons at the end of that. So 4 times what the rate should have been to make it sustainable. Yeah. So what's going to happen with the tuna? They're going to be gone in 4 times as fast. Well, and you have that happening, and then you also have to think about the people who are making a living. It's not just the science; it impacts people's can they live their lives? And
absolutely,
what are they going to stop fishing? Are they going to retrain? These old people, like our friend Captain Sean's a tuna fisherman,
right?
He can't. No one likes him. He can't do anything else. He's going to be a fisherman.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? That's the danger.
Him. I like it.
Of course. Yeah. And that's the thing that happened in Newfoundland is everybody, it was a fishing province, right? Most of the people were from generations of fishing, and they got all shut down. And what did they have to do? They had to go to the next thing that they could be trained for, and that was oil and gas.
Yeah, which is
and now they rely on oil and gas, which is not good now because if you look at Canada, we're just an oil and gas country.
And Toronto has no tuna fishery.
No,
it's over. It's over. You wrecked that one. Way to go.
We wrecked that
one.
Yeah.
Stupid lobbyists.
Stupid. But it's one of those things where you're ruining a society. You're ruining a tradition. So it's not only just one of the things I went to a conference this year at International Marine Conservation Congress in Newfoundland, and somebody told me. It's like conservation is not about managing the ocean. It's about managing the people who use the ocean.
Right.
And not necessarily in a bad way. Like fishermen should not be vilified, right? They are making a living as they were taught. They are using the ocean. Well, chances are they're pretty good with conservation because they know they've seen the fish go up and down. They know when it's good. They know when it's bad. They may not know the reasons why they're not coming back. All of them. That's where scientists and fishermen are now partnering.
Well,
commercial fishermen, artisanal, they're partnering. It's like we've seen the light, Clay. It's like we're just kind of like, okay, let's and they're doing it all over the world. Philippines, they've actually made rotating a marine protected area in the Philippines, in parts of the Philippines. The WWF went to work with these artisanal fishermen that were catching fish and keeping that going. And so what they do is they rotate the MPA. So it's like, okay, this area is closed off, but area B and C, you can actually go and fish. And then, okay, after a while, let's close off let's close off B, and you can fish in C and A. And let's keep rotating that. And what happens is it increases the fish production once that gets closed off for a bit, allows it to regroup. It's almost like, when you have grazing cattle. Right? You're not going to keep the cattle grazing on, until the grass is gone, but you'll have them grazing for a little bit. You'll move them over, and then that will grow back. That patch will grow back, and then once the other patch has gone down a little bit, you'll move them back over, and that's why they run so much, right? And it's the same thing, right? And we just don't see it. We just haven't been able to see it because it's underwater. Right. And now now with the data that we have, we're able to see it in the examples that we've been through and the hard times that we've gone through. We're actually able to teach fishing communities how to better manage the resource along with the science, and the fishing communities teach us how they've managed the resource, and we pool that knowledge together, and you make a sustainable fishery.
Yeah, well, I think also we need to separate commercial fishing with recreational angling. too.
Yeah.
Because I think these population crashes aren't happening because some guy with a fishing rod is killing everything. You
Right.
know, this is happening through the bigger operations, the long line, the trawlers, that sort of thing.
A lot of times. Now you got to be careful with targeting potential species at risk. And so say like the scallop hammerhead, for instance, doesn't do well even after getting caught. Even if you release it, the stress that it goes through just in the fight can kill it.
You'll kill
And that's
fish,
proven in science. Yeah, but hammerheads are especially sensitive to that. Yeah. And so that's why a lot of times they had the protection. So Dr. Neil Hammerschlag's lab came out with that.
Is that his real name?
That's his real name.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What other job can he have?
Exactly. And he's Canadian, by the way. But he's working at a university in Miami. He's got a great lab there. They've been on Shark Week and everything, and bringing back the science in Shark Week. And they came out with a paper that actually helped get the scalloped hammerhead shark on the state endangered list and help protect them. But that's what they noticed. They took blood samples after they caught them, and they noticed that they were stressed out. And so a lot of times they say, like, if you catch a hammerhead, to leave the hook in, because it'll eventually it'll rust out and fall out. Yeah. Because just taking it out will actually hurt them more. And I mean, because I don't fish, I didn't know this, but apparently some other fishermen didn't know that anyway, right? And so not some did, some didn't, but that education and that partnership as well with recreational fishermen scientists is really important to communicate that in a helpful way, not a talking down way, but in a helpful way. Right, as a partnership, not as a lecturer to lecturee, right?
That's fair enough. All right, let's move forward here because we got lots to cover. All right. Yep. So Jeff Donaldson, who is actually our newest fishing correspondent, he's a librarian from the Mid-Continent Public Library.
Love it.
Yeah, I know. He's a fan of the show. Now he's part of the show. Let's see. What did he say? He said, I mean, this is exactly how his voice sounds. He said, climate change. And then
exclamation point.
Yeah, he meant it. And then
said, and I was
ahead.
I was like, is there anything specific, Jeff, like how it affects fish and fishing or ocean acidification or other ways it affects the ocean?
Right. And a lot of people don't know this, but Jeff Donaldson only speaks in 2-word sentences.
It's very difficult to figure out what he wants.
His writing is awful. You try to read a book he wrote, it's impossible to get through.
He can read books, but writing them is completely different.
Right? Yeah. Me right. And he said, I'm hopefully people know I'm joking.
Of course.
All right, so Jeff says, well, I'm interested in how the populations will likely either move to water that's their preferred temperature or decline in range and numbers when there's nowhere else to go. That's bad for both ecological and economically. And yes, acidification is an overlooked aspect of climate change. It could be really bad for corals and shellfish because of changing water chemistry. His actual voice.
Yeah, and I was like, "Yep, gotcha." Because there's so much to answer in that question.
Jeff.
Yeah, that was after like a couple of hours. Oh, it was the next morning. It was like 8:30 in the morning, and I'm like, "All right, gotcha. We'll cover that too."
Yeah.
Well, like this is more of a talking point.
Yeah, well, and that's what we're looking for here with all these discussions. Like, I actually, if you notice, I didn't write anything in this.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's save it for the show. Yep.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was great. Well, I think the reason why I went in to write it is because we delayed it by a week. So I was like, I don't want to just kind of leave these guys hanging. Yeah, so I was like, I'll screw them. They'll just have to wait and listen.
Bastards.
It's anticipation.
They don't mix the show. They can get over it. I'm like surly to my fans. Like, you dick.
you want this to get mixed right away? Patreon me, and I'll tell you how to do it.
I think all these people are giving me money.
Okay. Well, now, okay. You got no excuse now.
Yeah.
But no, to answer
his question,
them $1. Now to answer the question about shifting populations, and that's a big thing with climate change. That was one of the first things I ever learned as a biologist with climate change, is that as waters get warmer, and they are getting warmer, right? We're not going to argue that. They are getting warmer. Animals have shifted in their distribution.
It makes sense.
Case in point, there's a couple of cases, but case in point, on the Northeast coast, since you're on the Northeast coast, the cod in Maine area, right, Gulf of Maine and whatnot, are not doing as well as the cod, or we're not recovering as well as the cod in Newfoundland.
Makes sense.
And it's because the waters in the Gulf of Maine and in that area in New England are warming up. And so, and so much so that you're seeing shifts in animals and fish coming from the south. So I think it was like the black sea bass coming in and moving in and competing for that. And the cod are actually shifting north. So the cod are moving more into Canada and less into the Northeast, which is disrupting a cod fishery, which is like a very, very well-established cod fishery.
Wow.
And people are waiting for those numbers to come up so they can start fishing again, and now they're not there because of warming oceans. So you get that shift, right?
Well, we're seeing the cod moving up. We're seeing the sea bass coming in. We're seeing triggerfish. We're starting to see on the Cape, they're starting to see lionfish. I mean, this is real deal warming waters.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's scary. It's scary in a certain way, but we have to adapt to that, and we're going to have to adapt sort of our fisheries management to that as well. So open up new fisheries in certain areas that have never been opened, and that becomes complex when you manage fisheries, along a coast, because you're not allowed to. There's no license to get sea bass up in Maine, right? So how do you change that, and how do you change it quickly so that the fishermen can still provide for their families?
Well,
right?
you change that. You also have to change the culture of the people who are buying the fish.
Yes.
Because if your whole life you've only eaten, cod or whatever white fish you happen to be into, and someone tries to convince you that spiny dogfish is the new thing, you're going to have a hard time with that.
Yes.
Even though it's just as delicious. You just have a hard time changing your mind. Okay, what does sustainable look like? And do I want to eat sustainably, or do I want to eat fish I know? But from what I know about most New England fishermen, fish eaters, is they don't like fish that taste like fish.
Yes, that's true. And you know what's funny is, like, you mentioned that, and marketing is like the biggest thing in fisheries, because you got to market a fish so that people will find it palatable.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So one example is the Chilean sea bass.
Yes, there's Patagonia toothfish.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a Chilean sea bass, but it sounds tasty, right? But a Patagonian toothfish, and when you look at a Patagonian toothfish, it's ugly. And you don't want to eat something that looks ugly. You want to eat something that sounds great. And because you don't see the fish, you just see the fillet, you can call it whatever you want, and people will eat it.
There's actually regulation on what you can call fish, too. So you can't just make stuff up. There's a restaurant in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, serves only sustainable seafood.
Gotcha.
And they like to serve bycatch and whatever else. And so they did an experiment at a seafood festival where they were serving, they had 3 types of fish. It was all cooked exactly the same way. And one was called one was dogfish, and one was Cape shark, and they had another name for it. And they had a taste test. And people liked the Cape shark way better than the dogfish. And in the end, they were all exactly the same food.
Same thing.
It was no variation whatsoever.
It's amazing, eh?
And
it's amazing.
You got to name it. You got to brand it like hell.
Yeah, and it's a big marketing thing, and that's what. So that goes into that play, that climate change play, and making sure that people will like it. Traditionally, they've been eating cod in that area, and now they got to switch their palate to something else. And
you got to go back
some people may
years of cod eating. I mean, it's hundreds of years of this too.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen fast.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. This is where you can dump a bucket in the water and catch and fill it up and no problem, right? So
exactly.
Another quick example that's not fisheries related, well, kind of fisheries related, is the sea lions in California. For the past 2 years, especially during the El Nino seasons, sea lions were washing ashore either dead or basically malnutrition because their fish had gone north into cooler waters because it was such warm waters. But they weren't shifting along with that. So that was a big, from a marine mammal management point, that was a big problem. And the Marine Mammal Center that cares for malnutrition sea lions and marine mammals and hurt marine mammals, they were full up. And same thing was happening with sea turtles down south. In Florida, I think there was 80 at one point that washed up. and they got it. They had to be. I think they were Olive Ridley, I think, or Green. I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact story, but they had to be taken care of. And they were later released because of they had these sea turtle stranding networks. But without that, they would have been out of luck. So we're seeing a lot of shifting in species distribution from fish that are normally in specific areas that we know very well, and it's very different. It becomes a big change for management. It becomes a big change for fishing communities. They have to change their ways. They have to adapt, and you can't adapt unless you monitor what's going out there and what's shifting, and that's difficult in itself. Science monitoring is expensive. And it's difficult, and now they're working with fishing communities and fishing fleets to actually monitor what they're catching and what's being seen, and it helps in the data and it helps in the management, which eventually helps in the socioeconomic aspect of these communities.
But it's a little slow for a lot of the communities to get
for sure.
And the other problem is people have distrust in science because they forget that the point of scientists like being wrong. And so, and they think, well, if you're gonna, if you're not right every time, then therefore you're wrong all the time. They don't trust scientists because scientists are constantly going, "Here's what we know to be true today," and then tomorrow, new fact, we're wrong.
Yeah.
Here's a new true thing, and people take that as scientists don't know shit.
It's true. It's and that's its thing. One of the things that I find, I find interesting especially when you work with like engineers. And like physical scientists, like people in physics and chemistry, it's an exact science, right? Like engineers, you want to know what's at the end of the pipe. Yeah, it's math. We do an equation, and that's what you're going to get at the end of the pipe. If you want nitrates down, that's what number. You tell me the number, I'll get it down. Mm-hmm. But with biology and ecology, it's very different. Yes, there's some uncertainty. Now, most of the time, we can explain it pretty well, but things shift, things change. And sometimes it's hard to explain something if you don't have the right data or you're unsure of something.
Yeah, even with the right data, it's hard. So let's move forward here because we got a lot.
For sure. Yeah. Sorry, I talk a lot, so I apologize.
Yeah, we're gonna move faster now. Okay, you ready? Speed router. We're not gonna get through all this stuff. All
right. Sounds good.
All right. Ryan Dubé has been with the Fish Nerd since we first started.
Okay.
He's from Maine.
Yeah.
And he says, let me hang on a second. I would like to hear more about the scientists who look at the study of fish populations for commercial fishing. If we have paid these guys for years to protect the fish populations and keep them sustainable, then why all of a sudden do they choose a fishery like the cod fishery in the Gulf of Maine? Is this a failure on their part, or does it have to do with the politicians or not taking advice from the scientists? I've heard both sides of the coin, but never a definitive answer. Oh my God, there's like 30 some odd replies on this.
It's crazy. We went nuts. We went nuts on this, and other people joined in, and
let me go fast through where this went, and then you can pick it up.
Yeah,
okay?
Sure. That sounds good.
So Rich Collins says, and you never will. And Ryan Dubai says, well, I know in Alaska, guys at UFAF give a range. They say like you can take between 1 and 3 million pounds, and the politicians who make the laws always go with the biggest, highest possible number. That is a type of info that I find useful. And then Rich says, you can hire someone to argue the other side. Look at climate change. We all know you can't believe a fisherman. And then Ryan says, or a politician. I'm going to stop doing voices now because I want to get through this. Rich says, I'm going to guess you have your answer on that one. This is where they're not agreeing. They have not fished
one
together.
One of the key things that Rich said, though, at the end is like, but who said you could believe a scientist?
Yes. He did say
that. I find interesting. I find interesting.
He did
Go
say
ahead, sorry.
that. No, that's cool. You make a note there. John J. Murphy, I think he's from New Hampshire. He was going to ask the same question. It seems like the commercial guys who see things day to day and what the scientists say are two different things. I think you answered all this stuff with your last diatribe you just were on.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I do that. Ryan says the question, the need to close the fishery. How he questions the need to close the fishery. What he wants to know is why it got to that point. If we have scientists, so he's really pissed off that the scientists didn't stop it before it got that far. Rich now defending the scientists. No one listens to the biologists and scientists. They have no power. And here's you being nice Great question, guys. Can't we just hug and get along? I'll let you take it over from here.
Yeah, well, this is from a scientist point of view because you're just like I'm just at the end. It's like no one listens to the biologist or scientist. They have no power, and that's true.
Yeah.
We work up the data. We work up the data, and I talked about with the cod fishery. We worked up the data. There were trawl fisheries that were done from the 70s on. Into the 90s, still gets done. Mm-hmm. They do what they call a creel survey every summer and I think it's every second winter. I don't know if that program is still going on though, but it is pretty much almost like an annual thing. And so they know what's out there, and they know what's going up, they know what's going down. And especially with cod, halibut, haddock, that's the focus on commercial fisheries. So they knew what was happening, and the politicians didn't listen. It's the same thing with the tuna fishery. Mm-hmm. They know what's happening, but the politicians aren't listening because they're listening to the lobbyists. They get pressure from both sides.
Well, they're listening to the lobbyists and the fishermen who want to make the money, and so it doesn't pay to listen to the scientists. And then what happens is everything crashes, and they go, why didn't you listen to the scientists?
It's because the scientists don't have voting power.
They don't have the power, so that's right on
They don't have the voting power, right? When it comes to politicians, that's what it comes to. And this is not all politicians, right? This is,
all
but
of them.
I'm gonna be friendly again. Every single one of them, right?
Yep, bunch of jerks.
But what's interesting though, speaking of which, is I interviewed a guy actually in New Hampshire or New England, Rob Moyer. Have you ever had him on the show? You should have him on the show. He's really good at like grassroots kind of thing.
Make a note.
Make a note. The River Institute. He's really great. I had him on the show. He talks to politicians all the time. And I asked him, I said, like behind the scenes, I was like, what's up with the Republicans and not liking the environment, man? Like, what's going on? And he's like, actually, that's not true. Mm-hmm. And he says a lot of Republicans, in fact, the Atlantic Marine Monument that Obama put together or declared was started with the Republican Party because there was a Republican of that state as a senator, and he went to that person. And it's not necessarily the individual. The individual wanted to put it together because it was his state, and he knew the fishing community would like it. It would be best for the fishing community, and if he worked with it, it would work well. He had to run it upstairs to the whole party. You got to toe the party line, and that went through. It's a delicate situation when you deal with politicians, but a lot of times he was saying it's just build relationships. So what he does is he says, okay, we want to put a marine monument in this area because of this. Tell me he goes to his constituency. He's got like 40,000 people on his email list, and he says, tell me your story about this area, why you love it so much. And it's everybody. It's fishermen, it's scuba divers, it's sailors, everything. They give him the stories. He prints them off, and he takes them over to Washington, D.C., and he goes to visit that center, and he gives them this book. He goes, take this, read through it. Here are the points on the top. Take it to your boss. You let me know what you want to do with it. And then he goes, how's your son? Uh-huh. How's life? And they build a relationship. He's been doing it for years, and he's been pretty successful at it because he knows, I know what he can do. I know that person can only do so much, or she can only do so much. I give it to them, and then I just build a relationship, not to pressure them, not to yell at them, just to say, hey, how's it going?
Well, when it comes down to it, everyone has so much more in common than they do not. And
exactly.
You build those relationships, you get further along. Now, we're not going to push through this discussion anymore.
No, for sure, because I think we've covered a lot of it. But
you've covered everything on this, but you want to close it out with, go ahead, make your point.
Yeah, just like
make your point, Andrew. For
make
God's
my
sake,
point,
man.
damn. Gotta make it. The thing is you just gotta. There's not a lot of trust in scientists these days because of the way people have really twisted what they've done. It's not an exact science, but a lot of the times we're right. We work off of data, we work off of statistics, and we're our own critics. And it goes through a really big process to make sure that it gets the science is good science to be published.
Right.
And a lot of times we're right. Listen to the science. Trust the scientists. It'll work.
Right.
Be critical for sure, but trust the scientists.
Well, it's insulting when you say people data is always being manipulated and all that. You're like, well, no, it's being read. It's being
exactly. And there's that dynamic. The fishing community and the scientist community is coming together. We're coming together and we're working and we're a powerful duo. And it's working out pretty well.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks to all the people who contributed to this conversation. Sorry we couldn't include everyone, I'll just name a few names who participated. I won't read all their quotes though. Mike Steffen from UNH was in the conversation. Michael Crooker from New Hampshire. Carl Hayes from Philadelphia. Of course, Andrew, you were here.
Yeah.
Let's see, more Carl Hayes. Oh, the amazing James from California is in here. Jeff Donaldson again. I mean, this was one of our most robust conversations we've ever had.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I'll tell you what, Clay, is if anybody wants to ask questions as they're listening to this episode, tag me in a post in your group. I'll come in and I'll answer it. Excellent. I might just hang out there anyway to learn more about fishing, but I will be more than happy to answer it.
Well, the one thing about our group is not just about fishing. It's about all things fish. And so people on that group want to talk about all things fish. They're not it's not just fishing, which is fun for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hey, we're going to do some fish in the news.
Let's do it.
One of our favorite segments in the last segment of the show. Fish in the news. Fish in the news is my favorite. Do you love fish in the news? You must.
Hey, I love it. I love it. As soon as I see it, I get a smile on my face.
Right, and you gave me some good links for some new news sites that might be more serious than what I'm finding.
Oh, yeah. It'll be fun.
All right, this is from the UPI News Network. I've never heard of them before, but Top World News. This is fresh stuff. Fish linked to North Koreans' guards' diarrhea declining in value. Wait a minute. Fish
this is the greatest
North
story
Korean
ever.
Guards' diarrhea declining in value. That headline alone is a lot to unpack.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, it's got like Kim Jong Un's like face, like big fat face, like sitting right there, and you're wondering, like, does he have diarrhea now or after? I don't understand.
All right. The price of a type of fish that may have been the cause for a diarrhea outbreak among North Korean border guards is taking a dive, according to sources in the country. Prices are plunging because of rumors that leader Kim Jong-un is expected to give out Japanese sandfish as gifts to the people of the occasions of his birthday. Radio Free Asia reported on Wednesday. It would not be the first time North Korean leader has given the commercially important fish at a state-sanctioned present. In December, a diarrhea outbreak in North Korean soldiers, cynically described as a gift from Kim Jong-un, was likely caused by a free supply of spoiled Japanese sandfish, sources have said. Kim's birthday was on January 8th, but already prices of the fish have decreased dramatically, according to the RFA. So, if you want cheap fish this time of year, the deal is the Japanese sandfish is the way to go.
And apparently Kim Jong-un is going to give it to you, like hand it right to you. And it's like, this is how I repay my people. They'll pay me money. I'll be rich. You'll be poor. And now I'm going to give you diarrhea.
Well, now they're all poor. They can afford the fish that's on sale.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Maybe
imagine.
that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he's doing. I mean, like it's a funny story when you think about it. But when you really think about it, you're like, God damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
Right? Well, from your own leader, your fearless leader is giving you diarrhea of fish.
Now imagine, so you're these are border guards who all got sick.
Yeah.
Right? So they're staying on the border, and someone's trying to negotiate crossing, and they're doing that little dance you do.
They're doing that, yeah.
And they're like, uh-oh, I got a turtle head. Uh-oh. And then trying so hard, and then they have to go home and explain to their wives why they sharted.
Yeah.
And it's not me. It was Kim Jong. It was Kim who sharted my pants.
And then you probably get arrested for talking bad about Kim Jong, right?
Right.
Because you can't talk bad about him, but he's giving you this fish that's giving you the runs.
Yeah.
And then you may have let a terrorist go by for all you know, because you just had to get out of there. I mean, it's a terrible situation all around.
Worst.
Man.
It just stinks.
It's just nasty.
Yeah. It's just bad.
Welcome to North Korea. We got border crossing guards. But then you wonder, too, like South Korea had their opportunity to invade. Instead of worrying about North Korea invading them, why don't they invade them by just giving them the sandfish?
Because would you want to go to a country where everyone has diarrhea?
No, I wouldn't want to.
Forget it.
No,
that's the best border patrol ever.
It's true.
We're gonna invade North Korea. Wait a minute. You guys smell
Wait
that?
a minute. They have
Never mind.
Nope, we don't
Never
want the
mind.
road.
Guys,
We're
keep
good.
it.
Thank
Yep,
you.
Thank you. Yeah, we like things where they are. All right.
We love Slade.
Yeah, and introducing the Trump Fish, Iraqi's Kurdistan's first Donald Trump themed restaurant. This is a real thing.
I can't believe this is a real thing.
I can believe it. I was
Can you?
hoping,
But-
yeah. And now, if I was going to pick a fish for Trump, I probably would not
Yeah.
pick the carp.
Really, what would you pick?
I don't know, but I wouldn't go for something Asian. I just wouldn't. I don't think it.
I
matches.
see that. I
don't
never
think
made
it's-
that connection, but I see that.
Because I think China, I don't think it matches. Well, maybe I would now that I say it out loud.
You know what's interesting though? Asian carp are invasive in the States,
Mm-hmm.
so they're using carp as the symbol for Donald Trump being invasive in Iraq.
Maybe.
Could it be that deep?
No. Not likely. Now, the other thing, too, we're going to be corrected, too, because any fish nerd fan's going to look at this website and go, that's a common carp, not an Asian carp.
I know it's a common carp, but it was just nice to make that.
I know, it was a good try. Anyway, a Donald Trump-themed restaurant, one that's not owned by the president-elect himself, just opened in the heart of Iraqi Kurdistan called Trump Fish.
Right.
Its specialty is carp, which comes grilled or fried. I think I would go with tinned fish. I would go with anything canned, something that would just never go away. Local businessman Nadir Zawadi picked the name after hearing Trump's promise to arm Kurdish forces to help defeat ISIS, he told CNN. So pretty, in this case, it's a tribute. It's this guy's a fan.
Yeah.
As Atlas Obscura points out, that must be a newspaper. Zawadi stole the cartoon logo of Trump's face from a 2015 Uprock story, which mocked Trump's failure to own an NFL franchise. So the logo.
I just noticed the hair.
Yeah. Now it's funny because one of the things with all the, no matter what's going on with politics with Trump and all that stuff, and I may disagree with him on a lot of things, I don't make fun of how he looks because the way I look.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
I think you got him beat, though. I think you got him beat.
Yeah, maybe. The restaurant is likely the first one that includes Trump in its logo, but was not launched or licensed by the president-elect. Trump has 6 of his own restaurants in Chicago, in New York City, Waikiki, and Vegas. So Zawadi said that he dreams of opening another Trump Fish location near the White House someday if Trump invites him. I hope he does.
He'll probably be like, that's the best looking fish I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's a good looking fish. That's what he's going to say.
It's the bigliest fish ever.
The biggest fish.
For a joint that pays homage or perhaps pokes fun at the president-elect, the fish-centric menu may be fitting, considering Trump has previously admitted he is a fan of McDonald's Fish Delight sandwiches. Yeah. So, that's the Donald Trump fish. Yeah. Now, have you eaten carp?
I have had carp.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
It's
I don't mind it.
Totally food.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. I had it actually at an Asian restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a traditional Asian restaurant. So what they do is they actually they put the entire fish out, head and tail. It's not a fillet or anything, and so and even the scales, and you just gotta like pick through it. So like it has such many little bones. It was a bit of a pain to go through, but wasn't that? It was tasty.
Yeah. So I went on a quest to catch and eat every kind of freshwater fish in New Hampshire, and we ate common carp and we made gefilte fish, and it tastes like fish meatloaf. So totally good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Actually, I think that's what like carp would be good for, is to put it in something like that, like a meatloaf or say like a casserole, like a fish casserole.
Grind it
like
up. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Add some flavor.
And it still provides you with the nutrients you need, like from fish. So
yeah,
I just noticed it when you said the San Diego Chargers, like when I was reading it at the same time. I noticed that the hair is a Chargers bolt, and then even the eyebrows are Chargers bolts.
Oh, you're totally right.
Yeah, and I just noticed that, and I was like, wow. I was like, that they went completely San Diego Chargers, and I love that.
That's
yeah,
cool.
and especially with in the new, like, how recent is this? Is this
January 4th?
So this is January 4th, and then the Chargers just moved to LA. It's perfect. It's like you've got the Chargers news, so it's going to hit your SEO on the chargers, and it's going to hit the whole Iraq thing, national security.
See what I did?
But I love it. I love it. You just connect everything. But I wonder though. Well, Google's going to love this. I'll just say. But I, is it smart for like a restaurant that's pro-Trump who wants to arm Kurds to fight ISIS? Is it smart to put Trump on your logo on your store when ISIS is trying to creep in?
Well,
doesn't that
yes, it is, because he's got lightning bolt hair and eyes.
Oh, right.
And that will strike fear into these guys. So
that's right.
It's a very superstitious bunch. So,
I wonder if Kim Jong-un does the same thing with his hair.
Of course he does. Cool. Everyone. If I had hair on top of my head, I would do that. Yeah. So,
love it.
Yeah. All right. So one more news. Actually, we're going to cut this one short because we actually covered it in your discussion earlier. But this is from New York Times. Fish seek cooler waters, leaving some fishermen's nets empty.
Yeah.
And this whole article will be up on our website, fishnerds.com. But it actually illustrates the point you made earlier about the fish leaving the cold water. I mean, leaving the warm water for the cold. So
yeah, I mean that's what's going to happen. I mean, we're just going to we're seeing it now. We've obviously seen it, and it's affecting the economy right now. And this will be interesting to see how the new administration deals with this. Being sort of the climate change deniers, but they have to like, this is happening whether you say it's climate change or not. Say you don't want to fight climate change, you got to figure out how to adapt to this and tell the people why this is happening.
Well, here's my advice on this whole thing.
Yeah.
So politicians are toddlers.
Yes.
And they're going to react to things however toddlers react to things. So what you want to do is you want to encourage them in a positive direction. So if Donald Trump says something, even if it's off the cuff and it's not what he's been saying all along, but it's in the right direction, tweet at him. Hey, nice move, Donald Trump. I'm so glad that that you blah 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 blah. Reward the positive, ignore the negative. We're too busy beating up on this guy.
I agree.
And we need to focus on, okay, did he do anything right? Let's get there.
Yeah.
Do we agree with anything he says? Let's focus there. Put that energy there. Reward the positive behavior.
Yeah.
But
well, what's interesting is I did
at him, and it's not going to help anybody.
It's not going to help. And I just tackled this in my podcast on Monday about Donald Trump and how he's coming into power on Friday.
Yeah.
And
my birthday.
And he was on your birthday. Oh, happy birthday.
I hope he tweets at me.
And there's probably a likelihood he would, but I tackled. I said, look, why are we? And it was off an article at the Huffington Post by Dr. Ellen Prager and Tom Dixon, but they basically said, we shouldn't beat up on climate, like talk to him about climate change. Like, let's forget the word for now. Let's forget that term. Move it over to the side. It's that's just jargon right now. Let's talk to him about national security, the economy, and human health. And how the oceans play a role in that, and how that can be affected, or how it's being affected right now. You talk about economy, we just covered in this article. Fishermen are not catching the same fish that they're allowed to fish. So what are we going to do about it? How are we going to adapt to that? Are there enough fish coming up from the south to do it? I don't know. That's what we got to figure out.
Right.
So that's what you got to do.
And so if he does something that moves in the right direction,
you got
rather than saying, Donald Trump, you're a hypocrite, say, hey, nice job.
Yep.
Let's keep doing that kind of stuff. Let's reward the positive behavior. Don't beat people up when they do the right thing, even if they're wrong all the time.
And I agree.
Yeah.
And take the note out of Rob Moore's book where you build relationships with other Republicans in the House and in the Senate, and build those relationships, and so that when you come at them with something, they're gonna like it. They're gonna be like, oh, okay, well maybe I'll take that into account. Like you've been nice to me. You're not coming to attack me. I think if people work that way, which I think will happen, and I think it's already happening.
It has to.
You just got to adapt to it. Unfortunately, to try and reduce climate change over the next 4 years is going to be a lot more difficult, and you still have to pressure them about that. But that's going to be just a lot. It's going to be more difficult with the way the administration's moving.
Right, and you're going to need to choose your language. I think
yes,
coming out
very carefully.
You want to rephrase a lot of thoughts, but. I'm a big fan of people questioning stuff, and of being being a skeptic is really good, but be a skeptic. But when you have evidence in front of you, then look at the evidence and say, okay, well, there's evidence that shows me something. So then you have to trust the science at some point. So, hey,
exactly.
We're out of time.
Yes.
I'm
sorry I
so
took
glad
up
you're
so
here.
much time.
How dare you? This is our longest show in the history of the show.
I do talk a lot,
Let's
according to my wife.
Well, that's why you make a podcast. It eliminates-
Exactly.
My wife no longer has to listen to me talk about fish.
That's true.
In front of
She
you,
closes the door.
In front of you, there's a script. So that's it. You've listened to a couple of fish nerds when you could have been fishing.
Love it. We'd like to thank our families for supporting us while we podcast, go on fishing quests, and do all sorts of silly things that nerds do. If you would like to support Fish Nerds, you can go to patreon.com and search for Fish Nerds and help us crowdfund this podcast.
Yeah, and while you're there, give Andrew $1 too. Special thanks to Andrew Lewin from Speak Up with the Blue?
Speak Up for Blue.
Speak Up for the Blue podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcasts from.
Which is iTunes a lot of times.
Yep,
iTunes. Yep. And until next time, follow the code for the Fish Nerds. Spawn early and often.
Avoid free lunches with strings attached.
And swim against the current every chance you get.
And that's it. That's a wrap. We did it.
I love that outro. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, it evolved over time, and we'll never change it now. So. The code of the Fish Nerds. All right.
Love it.
I told them we have a group called the F and West, the Fish Nerds West.
All right.
The two guys out there, the amazing James and Fish Guy Josh, who have the pattern to do a whole show. I'd love to have them just once in a while just do a whole show without me.
Yeah.
And
We're
getting there. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, all right, man, we'll talk. Okay?
Yeah, for sure, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too. See ya.
See you next night.